Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon with Israeli News Live. Listen, this is going to be a very powerful, in-depth video. We're going to be looking at the Noahide laws and just how they may really bring it about. Especially after the Sanhedrin has sent Trump another letter asking him to fulfill that heavenly mission, putting those Noahide laws into power. You're going to see it's a very real possibility. Before I get into that, though, let me share with you, I've been saying this since this morning, but I can't express to you enough just how important this is, and that is that you go and you look at two different places here for sure. Ethan Suto, that's our son there, he just started his YouTube channel there, specifically as in short of videos as possible. He is laying out the full details of what has happened to our father-in-law, well, my father-in-law, his grandfather, my wife's dad, and the target. And you know, we actually, Ethan does everything very logically and very systematic. He's been getting the records, public records and stuff. He deals with all three doctors that were involved in his discussions there. I actually did a video, there's a 30-second clip there on Fact News Network, and I take you very, very deep. I'm taking you mainly because recently Carrie came out and I was totally in shock with her deniability. Also on our, that's, by the way, it is on iConnectFX.com, the full uninterrupted version of what I did today. Our website is IsraeliNewsLive.org. You can also see the video in its entirety there. This article right here responds to Carrie and her Twitter post. You know, I bring some evidence that you've never seen before. And people that have watched it are like, especially the video, they're in total shock. They're like, now I really get why you say there needs to be justice. Everyone is saying this is a criminal case. So you want to look at it. Look at what Ethan's putting out there. Ethan's going to take you to all three of the doctors that are involved and how that all plays out there. But in Carrie, her involvement is even more serious. It is very clear there is an intent to do harm. This was not negligence. And this is what we're trying to get people to better understand. Now, let me digress. Let's go back to what's going on here in the news. I do know, too, there has been, we got Ramadan coming up on the Temple Mount. There is a lot of crazy things happening there. There was a stabbing recently on the Temple Mount. I do see these news things there, but I have to pick and choose what I feel like is the most critical information. And what actually brought me to get back onto the Noahide laws, I thought this video here that I'm about to show you, I thought this was actually current. It popped up in my feed there, 119 Ministries, where someone had sent them a message or I guess a letter, whatever, and they were asking them about the 7 Noahide laws. Was this something really that we need to be concerned about? Well, that's what kind of made me get back on this kick again tonight. But I really thank God for the brother that listens to our channel that sent this to him. He does kind of minimize the possibility of it happening. But after what I begin to really start looking at here lately, I don't think it's going to come as a direct U.S. law. I think it's going to become an international law. Remember, they're trying to push already that we become liable as international citizens. Keep those things in mind, guys. Really listen to it. Now, in fairness to this guy, we're going to play his video a little bit later here, but he also does an amazing job and where he says they are not in agreement with the Bible. And then one other thing I'm going to get into tonight, and this is something where a lot of you guys are going to really like this part of it, We always talk about all those sub-laws. Well, I'm going to take you to, they call it Mishnah Torah. It's not Torah. It's not Moses' 5 books. But you got to remember, Jewish people. Now, I'm Jewish, and, I shouldn't even say that anymore. I'm a Christian is what I am, okay? But Jewish descent, right? But regardless, never did I think that the Mishnah or the Talmud take some precedence over the written word of God. No, I do not. And I believe that Jesus came to really lay the word of God down like it should be. But you're going to find out what those sub-laws are. Are you ready to get into this and see how they're going to slip it in on you? I used to think that maybe our nation collapses. They have some kind of calamity. They bring in martial law, and then the next thing you know, we have the Noahide laws. No, but they did do one smart thing. It's not smart for them, but not for us. They've slipped all this into your education. This is why they're also getting Trump to clamp down on the universities. Everything is about education. Putting the Bibles back in the school. Maybe not the one you think you're going to get back in the schools. No, your kids are not going to see anything about where Jesus says that the Pharisees were serpents or vipers. No, that'll be excluded. Or it'll be retranslated to something else or taken out altogether. That's nothing uncommon, friends. I mean, go back and look at the Septuagint. The Septuagint actually has books that are not even in our canon of today. Go back to the 1611 King James Bible. You have books in there that are not in the King James of today, right? So they're always changing things over time. Be careful, watch, and pray. Let's get into it. The Sanhedrin, they did this in Trump's first term. They're doing it again. Sanhedrin letter to Trump, you have been elected to fulfill a heavenly mission. February 14th, 2025, they have sent an open letter. The Nascent Sanhedrin published an open letter to President Donald Trump, blessing him for putting faith in the forefront by establishing a White House faith office. The Sanhedrin called on President Trump to establish an international divine court for all nations. There it is. There it is. An international divine court. Now, who did Trump put on his White House faith office? Well, let's just pop it up here because you already know. Paula White is on there, but what is she doing? Studying with rabbis in Israel. Okay? She is studying. Trump appoints staunch pro-Israel pastor Paula White to lead. Okay, she is leading. Remember what she said in that video I played to you recently? She said, when I was walking on the White House grounds, God was walking on White House grounds. Well, this woman here went and spent all of her time studying underneath the rabbis in Israel because why? They're grooming her to be a Noahide. Maybe she converts to Judaism. I don't know which one it's going to be, but that's exactly what they're up to. Anyway, dear Honorable President Donald Trump, may Hashem, the Creator, bless you and your nation. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for bringing faith to the forefront in America global culture by establishing the faith office in the White House. Yeah, because they already know who they control. This refers to the president announcing last week the National Prayer Breakfast that would create a White House faith office headed by Pastor Paula White. White is an outspoken supporter of Israel who has been at the forefront of advocating for the Jewish state since October 7th earlier last week. While White met for 4 hours with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the Sanhedrin's letter continued. Your recognition of the importance of religious and public life is a step towards restoring moral values and spiritual leadership in the world. The Sanhedrin then listed the universal moral code. The book of Genesis has a profound message of unity and divine purpose for humanity through three fundamental principles. And they go on there: one God, one first man, one basic law, to establish principles of justice. All right? That's only three they can pop up to try to get it somewhat to look like it's biblical. And they do resemble somewhat of the Ten Commandments, except that law of that one that they established courts of justice, right? That one just does not make any sense. But remember, they say there are seven. Right? There's seven. Well, let's take a look at some of this here real quick here. Let me find the right corresponding videos here for you to think about on that issue there. Hang on. Here we go. Tovia Singer. Tovia, can you tell our class today how many laws are there besides the 7 Noahide laws? Listen to Tovia.
Now, the Noahide laws are called 7, but really there are nearly 100 of such laws. But there are 7 major categories. But what does it mean, Noahide laws?
Well, there you have it. There's nearly 100. Really? Yeah, there's nearly 100. Now, I said to you that they're not, I've always thought myself, they're going to just do this in the United States, but I'm beginning to think that that's not really the way they're going to do it. Do you remember, like in this case here, Nikki Haley threatens to pull U.S. funding to the United Nations, right?
Mr. President, to its shame, the United Nations has long been a hostile place for the state of Israel. Both the current and the previous Secretary Generals have objected to the UN's disproportionate focus on Israel. It's a wrong that undermines the credibility of this institution, and that in turn is harmful for the entire world.
Wow. Harmful for the entire world. Now that one was just about getting rid of the funding, but Nikki Haley eventually went on to push after Donald Trump was out of office, that it be totally replaced completely. In fact, she wanted the Sanhedrin to take its place. And oddly enough, let me find the article for this, and maybe it's right here. Let's see here. Yeah, here it is. The Sanhedrin invites Nikki Haley to be the honorary president of the Organization of 70 Nations. What? Are you serious? Nikki Haley? Yeah. During their session during the recent Hanukkah holiday, the Sanhedrin decided to invite Nikki Haley, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, to be the honorary president of the Organization of 70 Nations, the Sanhedrin. The decision reads as follows. God established the border of the world based on the 70 children of Israel who went down to Egypt and the 70 nations that came out from Noah. The concept of 70 nations is from the Bible and symbolizes the basis for the organization while not being intended to imply a limit of requirement for participation. The concept of 70 nations also appears in reference to the 70 oxen offered in the temple. Well, that kind of tells me that we're all going to become sacrifices, doesn't it? Isn't it kind of odd, the 70 oxen that were slaughtered in the temple? And yet, you're going to see very soon about these Noahide laws and the punishment that goes with it. Yeah, don't want you to miss out on that at all. Let's take a look at Rabbi Menachem Schneerson. You'll have to read the subtitles here. I'll turn the volume down on the video because he speaks in Yiddish and you wouldn't understand that. So let's listen to what he says, read what he says. Rambam forewarns that when a Jew approaches a Gentile and tells him, listen, you are obligated to follow the 7 laws of Noah with all their details. Did you catch that? Let me back it up. Follow all 7 Noahide laws with all their details. Yeah, That's what he said. All their details. Wow, that's interesting. Also, ICC, this is a different issue, right? The International Criminal Court. Remember, they take and filed charges against Netanyahu for being a war criminal. And he is a war criminal. I agree that he is. Why? What happened on October the 7th was a tragedy for the Jewish people. It's more of a tragedy because the evidence, the overwhelming evidence that Israel stood down and did nothing for nearly 8 hours while they allowed these Hamas militants that Netanyahu funded with millions. I've done the videos over and over and over and over. Just go look them up at what I've got on my channel and you'll see it. They funded them by the billions of dollars, in fact. According to the former Shin Bet leader, billions. Not on a monthly basis, a near daily basis. Cash money, US dollars. No wonder why our money is worthless. Israel gave it all to Hamas. And then they trained them for a year. Egyptian intelligence. Everybody knew it except Israel, right? No, Israel knew it. Jonathan Pollard, the spy that stole secrets from America to give to Israel, he says in a video, I did go back and look it up. I'll even put it in the link for you in the description here below for you. Jonathan Pollard said he knew the pilots of the helicopters in Israel. They were locked and loaded. It had already been reported by the girls. They saw that the fence was being breached and they could have flew and been there within 5 minutes and engaged, and this would have never happened. They were told to stand down for 6 hours, he said. How many have come forth and blown the cover on this? And then Israel goes in there and carpet bombs the entire place. They planned it from the beginning. They want a tri-state with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Israel. Listen, if they got to bring Egypt down too, they'll bring Egypt down because there's going to be a tri-state. And I guarantee it's going to be Goshen, it's going to be Gaza, and it's going to be Mount Sinai, which is part of the Neom city inside of Saudi Arabia. Their little pyramid that they're going to create out of all of that. Anyway. What did Trump do? ICC condemns sanctions by Trump administration and pledges to continue its work. No, Trump is going to do what he can along with the rest of those, like mainly Israel and other nations. They're going to bring down the United Nations. They're going to bring down the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and they're going to bring it all down in their new world order. That's how they'll set up the Noahide laws. And the Sanhedrin already knows this too. The Sanhedrin will replace the United Nations. And then Trump will be the one that sets up a new, because that's what they were asking him, right? Look, let's go back and look. That's what they were asking him, to recognize your importance of religion in public life as a step towards restoring moral values and a spiritual leadership in the world. The Sanhedrin then listed the Universal Moral Code, right? But they asked him to set up, let's find it here. Here it is, right there. I'm sorry, I missed it. The Sanhedrin called on President to establish an international divine court for all nations. My God, they're not going to do it here in the U.S. They want him to put it over the entire world. That's how they're going to get you under these Noahide laws. And Trump's their man. You know, Trump, look, when it comes to the U.S., I'm not saying that this man isn't trying to do something to bring this country back together, but he's got puppet masters and they're pulling his strings and he's the yes man for them. All right? You don't believe it? Watch what he says in his Trump rally and how the Trump supporters loved it. Jesus says in Revelation, you are blind, naked, and don't even know it. You know, my wife just She tells me the other day, she says, Stephen, she said, you know, this is biblical what they're doing with these 7 Noahide laws. She said, and maybe I think if somebody shared that with her, or maybe it was her own revelation, I don't remember now. She said, but the black horse rider had a pair of balances in his hand. She said, that's them setting up this 7 Noahide law system. I said, you're exactly right. I hadn't even thought of it. I said, but she's exactly right. Listen to Trump. Let's hit it, Trump.
This evil anti-Semitic attack is an assault on all of us. It's an assault on humanity. It will require all of us working together to extract the hateful poison of anti-Semitism from our world. This was an anti-Semitic attack at its worst. The scourge of anti-Semitism cannot be ignored, cannot be tolerated, and it cannot be allowed to continue. We can't allow it to continue. It must be confronted and condemned everywhere it rears its very ugly head. We must stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters to defeat anti-Semitism and vanquish the forces of hate. That's what it is. Through the centuries, the Jews have endured terrible persecution, and you know that. We've all read it, we've studied it.
President Trump, let me share something with you and with those people that are out there. And I stopped the video long enough to pull this up and find it, and I'll put it in the link for you below. The Holocaust Victims Accused. It's written by Rabbi Moshe Schoenfeld. This book here in detail tells you how that they sold out, how the Zionists sold out their own people in order to get the state of Israel. And you guys have sold out these Palestinians, which are Jewish people, according to Zvi Misanai, who an Israeli who says that 90% of them have DNA that matches the Jewish people of Europe. Shame on you, and shame on the rest of those that are also evil to do what they're doing to these people. Let's continue on listening to the president, what he says here before he became president.
They've gone through a lot, and those seeking their destruction, we will seek their destruction. Now, when you have crimes like this, whether it's this one or another one on another group, we have to bring back the death penalty. They have to pay the ultimate price. They have to pay the ultimate price. They can't do this.
And there you go. And he did. He brought back the death penalty. And he tells you why he's bringing the death penalty back, for anti-Semitism. Okay? That's one of the Noahide laws, right? And listen, I completely condemn what happened to the Chabad Poway synagogue where they shot these people up. But again, here's this rabbi here at the United Nations demanding the Noahide laws. Listen to what he says.
To millions, including myself, he penned this speech 32 years ago to be read right here at the United Nations. But it didn't come to fruition. I have the great opportunity, and I'm very humbled, to share with you some of the words that my dear Rebbe wrote 32 years ago that is so relevant today. And the Rebbe writes about the power of the United Nations. All of you here have been given by God an opportunity to make a difference in the world. And the Rebbe taught us something very poignant, that indeed, when the world was repopulated after the flood with Noah, God gave 7 laws called the Noahide laws. This is the bedrock of any civilization that were to exist. And the Rebbe pleaded, if only the United Nations will go back to the basics and empower their nation to adopt the 7 Noahide laws, then this world would be a very different world, and perhaps we wouldn't have lost the 150 million lives that we have lost in the last 200 years.
Now, I disagree with him because the thing is we have the Ten Commandments, which mirror the 7 Noahide laws on face value. Didn't do a bit of good. All right? Including the death penalty, etc. But you do want this so that you can kill off the people you don't like. And that's the sad part. Stephen Miller brings out about the death penalty.
He has also restored the death penalty at the Department of Justice, including for illegal aliens who commit murder, including for those who murder cops, and including for all of those who threaten Americans with heinous acts of violence. The death penalty is back. Law and order is back. The streets are being made safe once again.
There you go. Death penalty is back. The Trump has got it in there, but you know what Trump said. He was doing it for anti-Semitism. Trump announced his withdrawal from the UN human rights body and halt funding for Palestinian refugees. So getting rid of the UN human rights. Soon they're going to get rid of the UN. They're going to get rid of the ICC. They're going to get rid of all these things so that it can all be set up under a new world order. Now, this is where things got me started here. So I'm going to play for you 119 Ministries and what he says here.
Ideally, we would like to have a teaching available for every question we receive. However, some questions can be answered rather briefly and do not require regular length teaching to serve as a response. That is the purpose of this teaching series, to offer an easily available vehicle to answer your common questions. In this teaching series, we will read a collection of hand-picked questions that we have received via email. Then, for whatever it is worth, we will offer a brief response, hopefully leading those interested in the right direction to find the answers they are seeking. So, let's get started. First question. Shalom. I enjoy very much the videos you offer. I understand about the 7 Noahide laws, but Israel News Live and On Point Preparedness, 2 channels on YouTube, are telling people that the Noahide laws have been written into the U.S. Congress and the Sanhedrin has asked President Trump to uphold these laws. My great concern regarding this is that it is being said according to these laws that idol worship has a penalty of beheading, and idol worship would include worshiping Yeshua. I would appreciate any info you have on this matter. It is a growing concern among many people. Thank you for your time. The 7 Noahide laws are taught by Jews to be 7 laws universal to all Gentiles, whereas the rest of the Torah, as the Word of God, is only for the Jews. We, of course, disagree with such a position as detailed in any number of our teachings. For more on this, please see our teaching, The 7 Laws of Noah. This particular question is expressing a concern with a belief that the United States is adopting the Noahide laws as a law of the land. When researching this issue, we find that there is nothing that really substantiates such a concern. So, from where...
So, like I said, in all fairness, he does kind of minimize it because he doesn't believe it can be brought into our laws. He will quote for you where William Dannemeyer talked about it back in 1993 when it was brought into that law there. But as he points out, it's not. He doesn't see how they could really actually bring it in. And he does do a teaching where, like I said, on this one here that he cites here, back about 6 years ago, that the Noahide laws do conflict with the basic principles and tenets of the Christianity in the first place. I do appreciate that about him, but I don't think he's taken seriously what I'm sharing with you now and just how easy this could end up becoming a real problem. But nonetheless, just for a quick review too, I saw this as kind of interesting on Twitter today. AIPAC Tracker, House of AIPAC, 119th Congress there. AIPAC controls 130 Democrats and 199 Republicans. Isn't that terrible? Absolutely terrible. AIPAC, for those that do not know, that is a foreign agency whose sole purpose is to get the different leaders of our political system there to support the different desires that Israel has for its own needs and purposes there. I think MSNBC did an awesome job in sharing some of that with us, and I'm going to just play a little short clip of what they had to say about it as well.
42 members of the 118th Congress. The 2022 elections were the most expensive midterms in American history, with a total cost of $8.9 billion spent. Now, last year, AIPAC ranked 15th in total expenditure by a political action committee, according to data collected by Open Secrets. But take a look at the other funders that AIPAC is competing against for that title. Act Blue and Win Red. They are Democratic and Republican Party machines. Save America is Donald Trump's money-raising operation. The Conservative Club for Growth, Emily's List, focuses on electing Democratic women to office. All of the PACs on this list are massively domestic-focused ideological machines. AIPAC is the only organization in the top 20 whose interests are focused entirely on America's relationship to a foreign government. Now, let's take a look at who benefits from AIPAC's largesse. Here are the top 20 recipients in Congress, the House and the Senate, of AIPAC money in the 2022 midterm cycle, according to Open Secrets. They're members of both parties. They come from every corner of the country with varying levels of experience in Congress. The Democrat Glenn...
So as you can see, they were making sure that the Republicans gained control of the House there. So, you know, I'd love to see if they ever allow this guy to ever speak about AIPAC again on the news channel, which I highly doubt they did. What happened in the 2024 election. I wonder if they moved up in their rank of giving there. And I'm sure they control a lot of these other organizations as well. But now let's get more serious. Let's get more focused. And let's take a serious look at these Noahide laws. I want to play for you real quick, though, again, Rabbi Mizrahi and what he says about the Noahide laws.
6 billion idol worshippers who makes God angry every second of their life. Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Tibet, Nepal, Thailand, so many. India alone is 500 million. China is 2 billion. So many, 2 billion Christians, which are idol worshippers. Between Chinese, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christian, at least 6.5 billion people are idol worshippers that, according to the Torah, do not have the right to live. Idol worshipper goy, it's death penalty. Not.
He just told you death penalty according to the Torah, right? That's what Rabbi Mizrahi had to say about it. Okay, we already played for you. Tovia Singer said there's more than 100 sub-laws in there. Now, let's take you on a little journey through the Mishnah Torah, King and Wars. This, if you'll notice, they call it Mishnah Torah. I thought the Torah was only the 5 books of Moses, right? Most Christians would think, well, you have the Old Testament. The Old Testament is made up of 3 different subcategories. Torah, Ketuvim, and the Nevi'im. The Ketuvim means the writings, and Nevi'im means the prophets. These are Hebrew terms there. Torah means the laws. The laws came from Moses. But in Judaism, what the rabbis have to say is greater than that of what Moses says. Here's where we find the 7 Noahide laws. All right, let's take a look at what some of these really actually are. Okay, now, a Noahide who worships false god is liable provided he worships them in an accepted manner. A Noahide is executed for every type of foreign worship which a Jewish court would consider worthy of capital punishment. However, a Noahide is not executed for a type of foreign worship which a Jewish court would not deem worthy of capital punishment. By the way, you just heard from Rabbi Mizrahi, who said Christians, idol worshippers, death penalty. But do you know what he says about Muslims? they're not considered to be idol worshippers. They just believe in one God. And so therefore, they're off the hook. Think about that. Yet they make all these wars with them, right? A Noahide who curses God's name, whether he uses God's unique name or one of his other names in any language, is liable. This law does not apply with regards to Jews. By the way, the Jews get so many different graces that you as a goy don't get. Now, a Noahide who slays any soul, even a fetus in its mother's womb, should be executed in retribution for its death. Similarly, if he slew a person who would have otherwise died in the near future, placed a person before a lion, or starved a person to death, he should be executed through one manner or the other. He killed similarly, which should be executed if he killed a pursuer. Watch this one. When he could have saved the latter potential victim by maiming one of the pursuer's limbs, these laws do not apply with regard to Jews. In other words, if a guy's trying to kill you, he's chasing you down to kill you, and you shoot him and you don't shoot him in the leg, you're to be put to death. But if you're Jewish, no, you get to live. Here we go, right? The sexual relations forbidden to Noahide. Well, I mean, some of them are very obvious, but again, notice it's not just 7 laws, right? No, and can't have sex with animal. I mean, people would be nuts to want to have sex with an animal in the first place. A married woman, his maternal sister. I'm trying to stick with just things I've highlighted for you. He is liable for relations with a male, whether a minor or an adult, and with an animal, whether young or old. In the latter instance, the Noahide alone is executed and not the animal. We are only commanded to kill an animal with which a Jew engaged in a relationship. Now, listen, to me, that stuff's evil in the first place. But you see how messed up, though, the laws are? If you're a Noahide and you have sex with an animal, they kill you, the animal lives. Well, that would make sense anyway. The animal shouldn't die for some sin that somebody else commits. But if a Jew has sex with the animal, the Jew lives and the animal is killed. Where's the logic in this, right? Well, who comes up? A bunch of perverts make up these rules, I guess. A Noahide is not executed for adultery with a colleague's wife unless they engage in relations in the normal manner after she had engaged in relations with her husband at least once. So, all right, this is going to get nuts, all right? Watch what happens later. Similarly, a Gentile who engages in relationships with a Jewish maiden who has been consecrated is stoned to death because of her, as is the law regarding Jews. And recently, this is interesting, Elizabeth Glass, a Jewish lady, she saw that the Catholic Church in New York was having Noahide classes. So out of curiosity, she goes to that. And they said in the class that they're about to reenact the laws to put people to death for sexual immorality. She couldn't believe her ears. When is a Noahide woman considered divorced? When her husband removes her from his home and sends her on her own. When she leaves his domain and goes her own way, they have no written divorce proceedings. The matter is not dependent on the man's volition alone. Whenever he or she decided to separate, they may and then are no longer considered as married. Won't you have to have a court for that one, will you? A Noahide is liable for violating the prohibition against theft, whether he stole from another Gentile or from a Jew. This applies to one who forcibly robs an individual or steals money, a kidnapper, an employer, or withholds his workers' wages and the like, even a worker who eats from his employer's produce when he is not working. In all such cases, he is liable and considered as a robber. With regards to Jews, the law is different. Similarly, a Noahide is liable for stealing an object worth less than a pruta. Thus, it is one Noahide stole an object worth less than a pruta, and another Noahide stole it from him. They are both executed because of it. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, a pruta is like it's just change. But if you're a Noahide, you're going to be killed for it. If you're Jewish, no, you don't die. This is the interesting ones here too. Noahide is liable for violating the prohibition against eating the limb of the flesh from a living creature. This applies regardless of the amount involved, for the specification of minimum amounts only applies to Jews. A Noahide is permitted blood from a living creature. You know, they totally take God's commandment to Noah about you're not to eat the animal that has blood in it, and then they pervert it into this. And yet, I realize even the Jewish people don't have it right, but I don't get into this one here because I don't want to cause more people problems. It's not what it says in Hebrew. God actually says he'd require their life if they eat the animal that had. I'm not going to get into that. I will tell you this, though. Let's look at it like this here. If the Jews are allowed to take the blood out and then they can eat the animal, where do they come up with this crazy idea that you're not to eat the limb of a living animal? I know what they're going to say in here. I've already read all these anyway, so I already know. But they totally twist the Word of God to justify these laws. Anyway, but like I said, there are so many sub-laws in here, it's not even funny. So, but as a Noahide, as you can see over and over and over, you're to be put to death. I didn't go far enough down to see where they tell you about how you're to be how you die. Let's see. Similarly, a Noahide is forbidden to partake of a limb from a living creature, for a limb of the flesh is separated from an animal that is moving convulsively, even though a Jew has already severed the two signs. How must the Noahide fulfill the commandment to establish the laws of courts? They are obligated to set up judges and magistrates in every major city to render judgment concerning these 6 mitzvot and to admonish the people regarding their observance. A Noahide who transgresses these 7 commandments shall be executed by decapitation. There it is. There you go. I wanted to make sure you knew about that. He'll be executed by decapitation. Now, even though the Sanhedrin is requiring Trump to do an international divine court for all nations, they would still, at that point then, once he sets that up, in other words, they're going to replace the ICC, then you have to become an international citizen. And that's what they're pushing for as well. Once you become that, that's where they can now place those courts. It'd be an international court within the United States that would bring about the punishment for these laws that are violated. That's the way they would do it. And by decapitation. Now you know why the guillotines were brought here to the United States. They're brought here for that reason. For this reason, all the inhabitants of the Shechem were obligated to die. Shechem kidnapped, they observed and were aware of his deeds, but did not judge him. And Noahide is executed on the basis of the testimony of one witness and a verdict of a single judge. No warning is required. Relatives may serve as witnesses. However, a woman may not serve as a witness or a judge for them. Can you believe that? You think this is a joke? It's not a joke. Pay attention to what's happening. And those of you that wrote this dear brother here at 119 Ministries, share with him this video. Maybe he'll take it seriously. You you know, maybe he'll wake up and realize what's going on. I certainly hope he does, because it's fixing to get really serious. You know, Jesus didn't give you 7 or 10. They asked him about the great commandment. He said to love your Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. He said the second, though, was likened unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. He said on these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Because if you just did those 2 there, everything else you would keep anyway, right? And then Paul says here in Romans, by the way, it's written in their very Noahide laws. In fact, I got a rabbi that actually says this here. If they think they just do it because they do it of good conscience sake, they put you to death anyway. All right, maybe you can find that. Let's see what we got here. Oh, by the way, this here showing you Noahide, Singapore. Rabbi Mizrahi is in Singapore, China, teaching the Noahide laws.
If a goy steal, he deserves execution, not like a Jew to pay double. So their punishment is very serious. Then they should make themselves a court system and a system of police. They have to obey the rules that the people make, even though it's human laws. But since they nominate those people to make laws, like a Congress or this, then they have to follow their laws. The laws in town, the laws of the city, the laws of transportation. That's a part of their obligation.
Listen to it again. It's very interesting.
Only one is 2 goyim, Chris and Christine. That means a married couple by the eyes of Hashem. If she cheat with another goy on her boyfriend, which consider her husband already, that's a bigger sin. It's one of the sins of the goyim. It's a part of the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. The next thing, you should not steal. If a goy steal, he deserves execution, not like a Jew to pay double. So their punishment is very serious.
A Jew only has to pay double back. If you're a goy, you're to be put to death by beheading. All right. Then we have also to the head of the DOJ, Department of Justice, Anti-Semitism Task Force will be put Hamas supporters in jail for years. What do they consider to be Hamas supporters? Because you support the Palestinian people that are being murdered by Israel? I don't support Hamas. In that case, there you ought to go put Netanyahu in jail for years. He supported Hamas. Okay, so we're kind of at the end of our broadcast here. I apologize for taking so long with this tonight. Please do remember, though, to check out Ethan's channel there, subscribe, get the updates that he's doing there. And definitely go to the easiest way, just go to our website, israelinewslive.org. I'm actually on iConnect, but if you go to israelinewslive.org, you can see this video here. You can watch it right on the website as well. It's an easy way to do it. Also, the open letter to the 5 docs that my wife wrote, and then I did this one here myself, response to Carrie on her ex-Twitter post there. But that video there, wow, the evidence there, you'll see the conspiracy that's going on right down to the DAs himself. This is a major cover-up. So, anyway, thank you for listening. You can also watch it on Rumble. If you have a Rumble account, Israeli News Live /Yana on Rumble. Just look that up. You'll find the video is there as well. We had to put it in several places because you just can't put it up on YT. Just can't. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'm Stephen Benin with Israeli News Live.